Alright, we're here for Goji Center's newest video, and this one's going over the T-Rex Human Hybrids, which was a forgotten concept from Jurassic World. Yeah, if I remember correctly, this was supposed to happen in the first Jurassic World movie, but they scrapped it, and then we got the Indominus Rex, which I'm happy with the Indominus Rex. I actually did end up taking a look at the Human Dinosaur Hybrids, and they definitely looked a bit nightmarish, but I'm kind of glad we got the Indominus Rex over that still, yeah. But I'm curious to see this in-depth explanation of it, so yeah, this will be fun. So let's go ahead and jump right into it, shall we? And don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and all that stuff. Check out my Twitch and gaming channel if you want to as well. And yeah, let's get into it now.
In a hidden facility, locked away from the eyes of the world for years, a man-made nightmare of uncanny nature stalks darkened halls in pursuit of terrified victims. For the fourth outing in a Jurassic saga, the audience might have witnessed the most terrifying monster yet in the franchise. In this episode of Goji Center, we are not talking about the D-Rex again.
Yeah.
Today, we are traveling back about 2 decades to the fourth outing in the Jurassic Park section of the franchise to look at a monster that never was. The progression behind the fourth outing in the Jurassic saga was a long one well before Jurassic World broke the box office in 2015. Ideas for movies that never got made had been kicked around before Jurassic Park even premiered, and Crichton even had the idea for the second novel. After the third film abandoned a more complex plot in favor of people running away from dinosaurs on an island again, it seems a lot of people wanted to do something more unexpected, more strange, or dare we say absolutely crazy for the fourth film. After a few pitched ideas later, and then sci-fi horror writer John Sayles penned a script that got close to getting greenlit, involving a mercenary being hired to train a squad of Deinonychus raptors with small amounts of human and dog DNA as
well, we got, with small, okay.
war beasts. The script
I was about to say we got that in the form of Owen Grady, but never mind.
was already crazy enough as it is, with parachuting dinosaurs,
tunneling
raptors, and a villain who made Joffrey Lannister seem subtle.
No.
Director of JP3, Joe
Now I'm curious.
Johnston liked the idea, but somewhere along the way, the idea of going, let's just say, more extreme came up. And by more extreme, we mean absolutely insane compared to what came before. Pitching ideas back and forth with artist Carlos Huante, this was the result.
Holy Christ.
And amongst this monstrous menagerie of dinosaur hybrids meant for blood and carnage, one stood literally head and shoulders above all else.
You know, I take it back. I'd actually like to see these in a movie, but I just don't think it'd do. What am I trying to say? I don't know why, but I feel like it'd do better, like, not in the Jurassic franchise, but in something else. I don't know why I think that, but that's just me. But it is still a concept I would like to see. Well, I guess it would work with the Jurassic franchise still, because, you know, everyone's got their hands on all this cloning technology now, and dinosaurs out in the wild. It wouldn't surprise me if they tried something like this too, so I guess it could. I mean, it still could work, but I don't know. I think I'm just spitballing. Regardless, I'd actually kind of like to see these uncanny monsters in a movie now, actually.
With what limited pre-production...
I'm sorry, what?
One stood literally head...
This reminds me of Gollum.
And shoulders above all else. With what limited pre-production information we have and some real-world biology behind the beast, let's have a closer look at what could have been the most uncanny monster in the franchise.
Alright. Love the roar.
In the earlier version of the fourth Jurassic movie script, the obviously not at all evil Grendel Corporation was responsible for making a group of geneticists to engineer a team of trained raptors augmented with little bits of human and dog DNA as attack dogs. Although the idea didn't make it into the final story, some concepts like the raptor strike team and a hybrid creature carried over into later, even more crazy
That's a lizard? That's a lizard. That's just straight up the lizard from Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man. Huh.
Of the story.
I'm assuming that's where they took references from, yeah.
After 2 straight movies with T-Rex being the spotlight and then a Spinosaurus for the third film, something new had to be added to make a threat unlike anything anyone had ever seen.
Yeah,
with the previously aforementioned script already having gene splicing to upgrade the raptor's abilities without really changing their appearance much, the mad scientists of this fourth outing could have wound up combining the most dangerous predators to ever exist with one of the most powerful predators of all time. This Tyrannosaur monstrosity that has human DNA, and plenty of it. allow us to introduce, for possibly the very first time in 3D, what might have been the most uncanny
Tyrannos sapiens Huante? I'm probably not pronouncing that last part right at all, but I'm trying.
apex predator the franchise would have ever seen, as we have dubbed it Tyrannos sapiens Huante.
Alright, I guess
with
I
a
said it
mostly
right.
intact Tyrannosaur snout and no doubt influence on the brain, Tyrannos sapiens would have had a superb sense of smell for tracking and hunting. The eyes and brow taking on a mix of human and dinosaur traits implies great vision with the
Call me crazy, but I'm already thinking of like them making their own dinosaur-human hybrid society type thing, because, you know, they are part human, so, you know, when, you know, you're taking two I don't know if humans are actually classified, but I mean, we are at the top of the food chain, so might as well. So, yeah, I don't know how that goes, but, yeah. But I'm just thinking of that because, you know, they are half human, so, you know, who knows, maybe they could, you know, do all kinds of shit that humans could do, too, you know? I don't know. Maybe, like, learn to use guns or what. Well, maybe, I don't know, because, you know, they still are deformed and everything. Well, I don't know if deformed's the right word, but, yeah, I don't know. My head's going crazy places right now, yeah. Then again, when does it not?
human influence, perhaps correcting most of the errors the InGen T-Rex seem to sometimes have with their eyesight.
God, I just thought, imagine if those things could actually talk, too. Like at some point in the movie, they actually talk, they can understand humans and communicate with them, too. Can you imagine that?
Its night vision might not be as good as T-Rex, but it would have plenty of precision, picking out colors and shapes thanks to primate influence. And the sheer size of the eyes would help in seeing in the dark well enough. Hearing would be somewhere in the middle of
Another thing I just thought of, like, Homo sapiens used to chase animals into, like, heat exhaustion and everything. Imagine that's what these things do as well. Like, they just keep on chasing and chasing until you just, you know, just keel over from exhaustion, and, you know, they come in for the kill. Oh, Jesus. That'd definitely be something.
the two.
Just I gotta give them some spears and everything, and then, you know, you're all set. But then again, they kind of don't need them, but you get the point.
Able to pick up most of the lower frequency sounds T-Rex could detect, while also being privy to the subtle and sharp calls primates can register. All in all, an effective tracker and perceptive predator. But what about its physical capabilities?
Yeah, that's...
Admittedly,
you know, that is definitely something I am curious about, because, like, go back to this, because, like, God damn it, go back. Because, like, I'm curious as to this thing's movements with how its body is and everything. Like, but, like, I'm not sure how well it's gonna move. Like, you know, being a good tracker and everything sounds great, but will it be able to make use of that? I don't know. We're gonna find out.
but what about its physical capabilities? Admittedly, we don't know exactly how massive this augmented monster could have been had this film been made, but we can make a few guesses.
All right,
We're going to
let's
look
see
at
it.
this from a semi-realistic perspective. After all, the writers and creature designers will always be a few pen strokes away from making this animal as big as they wanted.
Yeah.
But we'll speculate regardless. When making a complete genome, each genetic addition
Oh, wait, this one looks kind of gorilla-like, huh?
and can affect the body, specifically if it's making up a good chunk of the genome. DNA and the genes involved tell an organism how to form its body. If a huge chunk of the DNA is telling the body to make it like a human, and another huge chunk is telling it to make it like a T-Rex, you're likely going to wind up with something somewhere in the middle. Unless
Yeah, probably. That's another thing I keep forgetting about, is the mentality of, like, splicing the DNA into two creatures and putting into one hybrid. That's something I never think about, but that definitely would be interesting, though. You'd have human instincts, and then you'd have T-Rex predatory instincts, like, mashing together somehow. Yeah. Another thing I just thought of is, how would these things breed? You know, how would they breed? Do they get birth? Do they lay eggs? Do they do something else entirely? Like, that's another thing which may or may not be brought up later in this.
of course, we're talking about more advanced gene additions, like what the Indominus Rex got for things like the cuttlefish chromatophore adaptations for camouflage. If we are indeed talking about an even 50-50 contribution from both human and T-Rex for the body, with Tyrannos sapiens here, because the human contribution would seemingly dilute the DNA telling how to structure a Tyrannosaur body, it should wind up not quite as big as a T-Rex. Likewise, the Tyrannosaur genes would still influence the brain and dilute the effect of
I'd say this thing being, like, maybe a little bit shorter than, like, an elephant, possibly. Maybe a bit more shorter than what I'm thinking, but Probably somewhere around that. Maybe the size of a rhino, hippo, somewhere around that. That's just my guess.
The human genes trying to make a human brain, so this thing might not wind up being as smart as a human. This is assuming advanced gene editing technology wasn't used to its full potential.
Yeah.
The resulting hybrid would end up somewhere in the middle of the two in terms of power and intelligence.
All right.
This is why the Indoraptor, with a lot more raptor influence for the body, spliced with the Indominus genome, wasn't as big as the Indominus, but was still bigger than a typical Jurassic-styled raptor, because the Indominus influence was bolstering its size.
Yep.
So, Tyrannos sapiens would have been small, right? Maybe a halfway point between humans and T-Rex, about 3 to 4 tons, maybe.
Yeah.
Well, about that.
Oh, boy.
If we look at some of the concept art with a
Ow.
human drawn next to it for scale,
Right.
something is up. Using our 3D model and crunching the number for the mass with volumetric analysis, this sapient saurian winds up closer to 9 to 13,000 kilograms, or about 10 to 14 tons. But hold
Lovely.
on a minute, shouldn't this thing still be smaller than a typical Tyrannosaur? Usually, yes, when it
Yeah.
comes to hybrids.
One would
But
think.
some laws of nature are more guidelines than rules, and even rules can have a few unpredictable exceptions,
Yeah, fair enough.
especially with unexpected meddling. Ligers, the crossbreeding between a male lion and a tigress, can often wind up noticeably larger than either parent. However, this kind of surplus of
Aren't
size
there also health issues with that too? I think I heard some like health issues with the ligers being made. I'm not really too sure though.
called hybrid vigor can be very selective. After all, the inverse, crossing a male tiger with a lioness to produce a tigon, often results in a hybrid.
That lion just wink at me?
The inverse, crossing a male tiger with a lioness to produce a
That thing
tiger.
just winked. That thing just winked at me. Okay.
Tigon often results in a hybrid smaller than either parent. This difference in size is due to how the genes that control growth differ between lions and tigers. Epigenetic phenomena are changes that can affect an organism's development beyond just the DNA. These changes can affect how certain genes work and how strongly they are expressed. For instance, when two different genomes mix, it can lead to changes in the health, size, and other traits of the hybrid. Factors like certain chemicals, specific growth patterns of species, and the environment can all play a role. In the case of Tyrannos sapiens, it's possible that the T-Rex genes encouraged it to grow large, but the human DNA didn't send the right signals to stop that growth. As a result, the genes kept promoting growth without telling it when to stop, bringing forth this. Grendel,
I guess,
or
yeah.
whatever shady company might have been involved in this monster, might have had a hand in this themselves.
Yeah.
Look closely at this thing's back, and notice something neither of its smooth contributors had?
Yeah.
This horrific hybrid is not just an amalgamation of different species, it is, by definition, a cyborg.
Oh,
Alright, not the
love-
T-800 Terminator
Yeah.
or Gigan variety, though, but something else. These spikes on
I
the
still have not seen that Gigan Rex thing. I need to look at that.
back aren't quills or spines from either of its contributors, but implanted control devices.
Oh,
In the
okay.
John Sayles
Yeah, I figured it was like I was like something to it. I don't know.
script that preceded this venture, the trained raptors were augmented with implanted control packs that fed drugs and hormones directly into the brain.
Ow.
These were used on the raptors to make them calm when kept out of combat and brutally violent against a target. Artist Carlos Huante tapped into a similar concept of remotely controlled dinosaurs, much like the brain chip
I'm just straight up a vampire, or werewolf, Frankenwolf. I don't know.
we saw Manticore use in Camp Cretaceous. Had this film gotten by, we might well have seen the two concepts merged together. That's right, this hybrid bruiser might not have just been augmented genetically. Its makers might have been constantly doping this beast man with growth hormones to further bolster
Yeah.
its size, and remote controls to change its behavior,
Yeah.
making it calm when kept in captivity or eating, and sending it into a berserk rage when pitted against an opponent. The
Seems plausible to me.
concept art seen on screen shows the extent of the control its creators tried to push upon it. But in doing so and playing Frankenstein, they
Oh,
might have
what the-
unleashed their own monster.
What the hell? You know, I actually kind of want to see all this in a movie now. I actually really do. I didn't look too far into the concept. I just saw like a couple pictures and that was it. I'm changing my mind on that. I actually want to see these in a movie. I don't know how good or bad it would be, but I at least want to see it. I don't know, maybe have like a short film spin-off or something. Yeah, I think kind of reminds me of Black Mask Godzilla though. I don't know.
So, how might Tyrannos sapiens match up against the rest of the gruesome cast of the franchise? How
That's a good
lethal could
question.
this thing be in its stated purpose to kill humans as an attack animal? Let's find out.
All right.
If there is anything theropods are famous for, it's their jaws. And while the feats of a Jurassic T-Rex bite are all over the place, a consensus everyone can back up is that, yes, this is still a pretty nasty bite, regardless of any drawbacks. Deferring to a bit of science, and we might be able to sort of figure out how deadly this bite could be. First question, how might the chomp of a human nerf this feature?
Yeah,
In raw
that's a good
numbers,
question.
yeah, it might take a toll. In practice, not as bad as you might think. Humans might be wimpy in the biting department, but we're not the absolute worst.
Yeah, that's
we
true.
humans did give up our raw force, being capable of crunching down between 300 and 500 newtons on
Jesus.
average across the jaw, sacrificing muscle attachments for a better bite for a bigger brain. A 2022 study on human ancestors indicated that even as the jaws became less powerful, the skull remained very sturdy to withstand strong forces. So, how is this factor with Tyrannos sapiens? Well, considering much of its skull matches up closely to a T-Rex already, this means that the human contribution did not nudge the overall shape enough for a big bite force to be a problem. If you want an exact number, and, well, not to bore you with the math, we did it for you.
right.
We'll draw an estimate using a weighted average of a scaled-up 10-ton human with the chomping force of a T-Rex. The final estimate gives us 25
right.
to 30,000 newtons, given that the jaw anatomy leans closer to a T-Rex.
right.
Weaker than a Tyrannosaurus,
Yeah.
but not by much.
Yeah.
Still, enough to dispatch any lesser animal.
That'll
There
be-
seems to be
Yeah, it'll be a nice. It'll be a nasty bite regardless.
another problem, though. The stance. Can this
Yeah,
monster
that's-
even position
Yeah,
itself
that's what I was asking earlier. How does this thing's stance and everything gonna work?
to fight effectively? Tyrannos sapiens has a much more upright stance and lacks a large tail for balance, like T-Rex.
Yeah.
While this build would definitely look intimidating, towering over most opponents, this wouldn't let it be the most noble creature, because its center of rotation would be directly between its legs, just like in a human.
Yeah.
This hybrid would
It's
be
all bipedal and everything. I think it like if it could use its arms to go quadruped, I think it could help itself a bit more, but I don't know by how much.
able to turn around very quickly when standing still or in a stride, but when it comes to sprinting and making quick banking maneuvers, that, combined with its high stance, might prove difficult.
Yeah.
A sufficiently big opponent might
I also don't see this thing being pretty quickly either. Being either. My God, I don't see this thing being pretty quick either.
be able to knock it over. Thankfully, it does at least have some means of fighting back besides its jaws, especially if wrestling a foe. Even with shorter arms than a human from the T-Rex additive, its limbs would be helpful to grasp and manipulate objects. Perhaps not as well as an ape given the absence of 3 digits, including thumbs, but still much more effective than T-Rex arms ever
Oh, yeah,
were.
definitely. Yeah,
Perhaps
definitely.
more so than the T-Rex, this Tyrannos sapiens will rely more on its brain. The T-Rexes seen
Possibly,
in the
yeah.
franchise were intelligent in their own right, with many feats to show that these were adept problem solvers, had good memory, and did express emotion quite well. This thing? Well, this will be the closest we'll ever get to a T-Rex behaving like a human. At
Yeah.
best, with limited intelligence, with limited tool use, and shrewdness. But hey, who are we kidding? This thing being conditioned to be a berserk attack animal means that it was absolutely going to get abused.
Oh,
and
yeah.
if malice was what it was treated with, malice is what it would learn to give back. Add in possible hormone surges via implants shutting off pain receptors and amping up its aggression, and Tyrannos sapiens might well have been something even more hateful and villainous than both Indominus and Indoraptor combined.
Possibly, yeah.
Having even more human-like expressions with more active facial muscles and lips than a dinosaur would, this
God, this-
uncanny manimal
Go. God, this one shot right here with the eyes just bulging out of its skull, or just looking like that. Holy hell. Oh, Christ.
expressions with more active facial muscles and lips than a dinosaur would, this uncanny manimal might snark, glare, or grin during the attack.
Yeah.
For extra unnerving effect to human targets, it's possible the modifications from the human genome also affected the vocal organs. Animals mimicking human speech is a well-documented phenomenon in
Yeah.
parrots, seals, and even elephants. Even if the monster couldn't pull that off, there might be some unnerving side effects of having a distinctly human-like scream reverberating amidst its roar.
Yeah.
And
Like I said, it wouldn't surprise me if these things could somehow learn to talk like a human either, but hey, what do I know?
in the mind of Carlos Huante, something big might have gone up against this hybrid. As he observed, there was one classic showdown, the final heavyweight grudge match rivalry of the Mesozoic that never appeared on screen in a Jurassic movie yet. No, this isn't Dr. Banner. This Hulk-looking bruiser of a giant Triceratops human hybrid could have wound up being the last defense of the heroes of this story against the wise tyrant. At a meter and a half shorter, but with a much brawnier, thicker build to give them equal weight, this bizarre behemoth could still go toe-to-toe against its fellow hybrid. Man-to-man, beast-to-beast, and a spectacle totally unlike anything the franchise ever had. This hybrid, along with an extra, even more creepy raptor human hybrid, will be featured by our friends at Dangerville. Link to their video is below, so go over there and tell them that Goji sent you.
Alrighty then.
Oh, and tell them Corey sends their Primatus regards as well.
I still cannot wait to see this thing in action. That is going to be so great. I cannot wait to watch this thing tear Primatus Rex apart. It is going to be so glorious! I ended up liking these things a lot more than I thought I would. Yeah, despite how uncanny it is. I kind of want to see these in like a movie. I don't think it's gonna happen, but it'd be fun. Although maybe someone will just make like a short film of it on YouTube or something. I don't know. Who knows what'll happen. Regardless, this is really good, and I enjoyed it, and I hope you did too. And if you did, check out the original video, which will be linked in the description below. Go support Goji Center for making this wonderful video. So, you know, and it'll be linked in the description below and all that stuff. And don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Check out my Twitch and my gaming channel if you'd like. Have a good day, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.